When learning the forehand, you were probably taught, as I was, to step towards the net so that the imaginary line through your feet would be perpendicular to the baseline and to the net. But when we watch the pros in baseline rallies, they much more frequently position their feet like this, with the imaginary line through them at an angle to the baseline that is less than perpendicular. And the fact is that in baseline rallies, you too are probably hitting most of your forehands with your feet similarly angled to the baseline. So why is what is called the semi-open stance forehand so common? And what do you have to do to hit well-paced shots from this position? How can I say, without even seeing you, that you are probably hitting most of your baseline rally forehands from the semi-open position? Well, here is a wonderful thing about the semi-open forehand stance. And this is something I rarely get to say about any aspect of tennis. It's easy to do. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it comes naturally. That's why I'm pretty sure you're doing it. As you're running around in a baseline rally, especially if it's a rather faster, more demanding rally, if you take note of what you're doing, you'll probably find yourself frequently hitting from the semi-open stance without even thinking about it. It comes naturally. I rate that as one of its great advantages. Now, on first impression, it may seem that stepping towards the net, it's often called a neutral stance forehand, offers certain advantages. After all, your body weight is moving forward, and since, as junior high school physics taught us, momentum is the product of mass times velocity, if your body is moving towards the net, that adds a lot of mass to the calculation, and thus should increase racket head momentum because the racket moves forward with your body. But there's a flaw in this reasoning, and it is this. You don't strike the ball with your body. You strike it with your racket. The ball doesn't know how much you weigh. So body mass has nothing to do with the momentum your swing imparts to the ball. Nothing. It is the mass, effectively the weight of the racket, that makes a difference in the equation. But, of course, the racket has very little mass. What really makes the difference is the other factor in the momentum equation, the velocity of the racket, specifically the racket head at impact. Physics majors, as I've said in the past, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. And as I've intimated, the way to generate that racket head velocity is to turn your torso fully to the side. That turn creates what is called torque. The definition of torque is a twisting motion that tends to impart rotation. And the impact of that definition is that the further you turn your shoulders without moving your feet, in other words, the greater your body torque, the more rotational energy you'll store and then impart to the racket when you swing forward. Moreover, you will be able to add that pace to your racket head without your having to change your stroke or muscle the ball with your arm. Consequently, torque is an important element in swinging with a loose, relaxed arm, just as you've always heard you should do. Of course, there is a limit here. You don't want to turn your torso more than sideways to the net, because when you do that, you will decrease the visual field that you need to see in order to accurately track the incoming ball. Let's go back for a moment to the neutral stance forehand, in which you step straight forward towards the net. I earlier dismissed body weight moving towards the net as having anything to do with imparting momentum to the racket head as it strikes the ball. And that is so. However, I did not mean to say that the simple forward motion of the neutral stance doesn't impart any momentum to the racket head. It does. But the point to be made is that you cannot execute that forward linear body motion as quickly as you can execute the more compact circular motion that derives from torque. This is slower than this. There is a logical question you may wish to pose at this point. If the torque of a semi-open stance imparts easy pace to the forehand, why not hit with a fully open stance that positions your feet with the imaginary line through them parallel to the baseline, thus enabling you to further tighten the torque of your turn to the side and thereby unwind with even greater momentum, sort of like a more tightly stretched rubber band? Good question. But I think you'll find that, like the neutral step towards the net, a fully open stance is not as easy to effect during baseline rallies, especially during quicker baseline rallies. The semi-open stance is, as I've already said, more easily, virtually naturally assumed, and offers a sufficient torque so long as you turn your body torso fully sideways. Of course, there is a place for the fully open forehand stance, and that is a topic for another video. And here is the takeaway. Why you may well want to film yourself to see if in baseline rallies you are hitting with a semi-open stance. What you really want to check on is whether your shoulders are turning fully to the side so as to increase torque and the resulting racket head velocity that comes when you unwind from the turned or torqued position. If you found this video helpful, please let me know. You can do that by clicking the thumbs up icon below and or by leaving a comment. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider clicking the subscribe icon. Finally, if you are so inclined, please recommend Cross Court Rabbit Complete Tennis to your tennis friends. And with that, once again, I'm David Popeil, and I want you to keep playing the greatest of all games. I'll see you again soon.